You're tuned in to the Foxboro BeatCast, a podcast for Patriots fans by Patriots fans. And here's your host, Kaleb McChesney.
Hello and welcome to the Foxboro BeatCast, everybody. I am your host, Kaleb McChesney. Alongside me, as usual, my co-host for the day, my co-host for the last month and a half. I love it. Such a breath of fresh air in here. Trent, back again. How was your week? I'm sure you've been looking forward to this one. Give us a little rundown. How have you been? How was your week?
It was good. I finished up some editing things. For those who don't know, I work for a 7-on-7 football company, and our second tournament of the year for making content for the athletes, things like that. We got some really cool things cooking up. So, yeah, it's been a good week.
Awesome. Obviously, we're going to start the show off with a little bit of Patriots news wound up. A lot of things happened really quick. A lot of little things. A lot of things that we thought were going to happen eventually. Well, we'll start it right off with Trent Brown, offensive tackle, reportedly not coming back to the Patriots, not getting extension. His contract expires today. We also let go of Adrian Phillips, the safety. Trent Brown, the move doesn't really surprise me after all we heard at the end of last year and going into the offseason about just how frustrating of a player he was and just how toxic of a player he was in the locker room. There were reports saying that after we beat the Steelers on Thursday Night Football at the end of December there, in the beginning of December, he was talking about going to play for an NFC team next year. And he refuted it, but also wouldn't shock me. Trent Brown has been a chronic complainer. He'll like vague things on Instagram, bitching about the quarterback, bitching about Belichick, and just trashing the Patriots, whatever. So wasn't shocking, not at all. He's a player motivated by money and nothing else. Adrian Phillips, hate to see him go, but kind of a depth safety at that point. It's just clearing up cap space for the offseason at this point. And then we hired Dante Hightower to be an inside linebackers coach. Hightower, obviously a fan favorite here in New England, kind of took that Gerard Mayo role when he first came through because Mayo was getting older. He was getting hurt all the time, and Hightower stepped right up and unfortunately kind of suffered the same fate at the end of the 2010s there. But great player, won 3 Super Bowls, I believe, with us. Just a phenomenal player. And he takes Mayo's role once again, going into the coaching and becoming the new inside linebackers coach, just as Mayo was. So I'm interested to see how that goes. We named our full coaching staff. I'll be a little bit more prepared about it next week. We'll do a deep dive right into it, but I just want to make sure there's no other lingering moves about this coaching staff before we really talked about that set in stone. But the big news came earlier this afternoon. Matt Slater, after 16 years, I believe it was, or something along those lines, retires. Special teams ace. Belichick calls him the best core special teams player of all time. I don't know how true that is or not. I'm not a football wizard. I don't know how important the special teams are and who goes where. But Slater, one of the all-time greats, just as far as his resume goes. I mean, he a 2-time All-Pro, 10-time Pro Bowler. Just an all-out great player. Won 3 Super Bowls. Yeah, Trent, this has been a kind of a weird subject for a lot of the football heads out there who really care about the Hall of Fame and who gets in and who doesn't. Matt Slater, I mean, his resume is unmatched as far as special teamers go, but how do you feel about special teamers in the Hall of Fame?
Well, I've always been a proponent of if you play the position of football, if you're one of the best ever at what you've done, you deserve to at least be considered for the Hall of Fame. Like I've never liked the notion that, oh, he's a punter, he shouldn't go in the Hall of Fame. He's a kicker, he shouldn't go in the Hall of Fame. I've never liked that. He was one of the most consistent, important pieces to the greatest dynasty in NFL history for his entire career. I'm like you. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I know a ton about the intricacies of special teams football, but I've been hearing the name Matthew Slater for a really long time, even as a Colts fan. So I don't see any reason why he shouldn't at least be considered for it. Whether he makes it in or not, obviously it's not up to us, but I think he should definitely be in consideration.
Yeah, and just on top of that, he's been in the running for Walter Payton Man of the Year multiple times. Not sure if he actually won it or not, but Yeah, I mean, yeah, just as you said, he's a league-wide no name, and he's a special teams player. Like, he's not playing the flashy wide receiver position. He's not, picking off quarterbacks on defense. He's not making huge tackles to stop the touchdown on the goal line. But as a special teams gunner, as a two-time All-Pro, and going to 10 Pro Bowls, hard to say no to that. And just on top of that, one of the classiest players to really step foot in Foxboro. Nobody has a bad thing to say about Matthew Slater. Congrats on the career. Interested to see what he does. I was honestly surprised he came back to come back to play this year. I really thought that was it. Him and McCourty going together. He decided to give it one more go, and it was quite possibly probably the worst team he's ever played on.
I think it was definitely the worst team he's ever played on.
And I'm pretty. And he was on the UCLA back in the late 2000s, early 2010s. But nope, Matt Slater calls it a career. Probably the biggest news we'll hear for a little while until the Mac Jones trade or cut whenever that happens. And I probably will even have I'll have even less to say about that because it's just we all know it's coming. We're just waiting. We're just waiting on Mayo to press the button.
Or when you guys trade the third pick for Justin Fields.
That's worth a conversation. We'll probably need to revisit that with that kind of like we already talked about a little bit with like trading down to 9 or 6 or whatever it is, getting Fields and then giving up a little bit more. It was the hypothetical trade. Was it last week or 2 weeks ago?
Last week.
Last week. Okay, so we'll probably even talk about that more as we get closer to the mock drafts that we'll do and the off season and all that. But another piece of Patriots before we get right into one of our other off season activities. I'm sure you guys have heard about it. Trent, I know you just got finished watching it a second time. The Dynasty on Apple TV kind of gives you a closer, in-depth look on the New England Patriots from the 2001 all the way to 2019, 2020 when Tom Brady left. First 2 episodes dropped last week, I believe, on Thursday or Friday. And yeah, it's been well received so far. A lot of people have loved it. Trent, what's your perspective on what were some of your key takeaways? What do you think about it? Are you excited to watch the rest of it? Kind of give me your breakdown of it and what you thought.
Well, my main takeaway and what I kept thinking about the entire time is from the perspective of somebody who is living in 2024 and has for the last 3 years heard people make fun of the Bill Belichick conviction to an extent. Oh, everybody in the world thinks we need a wide receiver. We're going to pick Cole Strange. Everybody thinks we need to go left. We're going to go right. And Belichick has done this for years and years and years, and people have made fun of him for it. But I didn't realize everyone was so anti-Brady. Not necessarily anti-Brady, but anti-Brady starting over Drew Bledsoe that early on in their career. And I think it's so interesting that Belichick conviction is what led to them winning 6 Super Bowls. If he doesn't, stand 10 toes down, so to speak, and say Brady is our guy through thick and thin, none of this happens more than likely. So it kind of put the way I've looked at Belichick's decisions the last 3 or 4 years into a different light. That was my main takeaway from it.
Yeah. So when I talked about you pre-show about some of the revisionist history that I was kind of hearing and reading and watching, popular news program or not news program, popular sports radio program over here in the Boston area on 98.5 The Sports Hub. Some of the old timer listeners who still listen to the radio might know them as Felger and Maz. Felger and Maz have been in the Boston sports scene since around that time, 2000, 2001. And they really came at this whole thing about making it look like everybody and their mother was against starting Tom Brady. And everybody and their mother was so backing of Drew Bledsoe. Obviously, you had your camps. You had your loyal Drew Bledsoe people, and you had your let's see what we got in Brady people. And like honestly, kind of like what happened this year with we should stay by Mac Jones, or well here maybe we should go see what Zappy has in them. Definitely it wasn't that bad because both those QBs were okay and pretty good. But yeah, it's just they started talking about it wasn't the fans weren't as heavily on the Bledsoe side of things as that docuseries made it seem. They claimed that most people were done with Drew Bledsoe by the time that had come around. I mean, they were just coming off a 5-11 season. Drew Bledsoe didn't play great, and they just handed him a 10-year, $100 million contract. So maybe there was some doubts on, you just paid Bledsoe this much, and you're gonna sit him. Like, there might have been some skepticism on that. Like, Belichick, you're in your second year coming off of a 5-win season. Who the hell do you think you are, kind of thing. But no, I guess what they claim is that the fans weren't totally head over heels about Drew Bledsoe like that. And Bledsoe wasn't necessarily the hottest item in Foxboro at that point, especially after, I mean, you saw it in one of the second episodes, they were talking about how Drew Bledsoe just kept getting hit over and over and over again, and it kind of turned something off. He wasn't the same quarterback anymore. He didn't have that edge to him anymore. And I guess that changed a lot of perspectives, and people were excited to see Brady, who wasn't, broken yet by taking all the hits and whatnot. So I don't know. Overall, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I did find it odd because it's funny because I watched this with my dad earlier, and my dad's just in the background every time they talk about Bledsoe. He's like, he was horrible. My dad's yelling out, he's a third-rate quarterback. And I didn't understand why this franchise that had been as bad as they were for 15 years or however long it had been, why they were so dedicated to a guy who had not won them a thing. And maybe that's just my perspective as a Colts fan, and I've been very blessed that there haven't been a whole lot of bad teams I've watched in my life as a Colts fan. There haven't been a whole lot of bad quarterbacks I've watched either. But it was just weird to me that this guy who has not even been good enough to host you a playoff game, everyone's like, oh, we'll fall on the sword for Drew Bledsoe. And I thought that was weird, and you adding that context, that makes a lot of sense.
A little bit of revisionist history, for sure.
Not as bad as Michael Jordan trying to say that Gary Payton didn't lock him up in the 1996.
I still haven't watched The Last Dance.
It's great entertainment.
Still haven't gotten around to it.
It is as good as advertised, as long as you acknowledge that they definitely take liberties here and there with stuff.
So Bledsoe, the year they went to the Super Bowl in 96, that was his 4th year in the league. 4,000 yards, 27 touchdowns, 15 picks. Pretty solid for the 90s anyway. 1997, similar production. 98, similar production again. 99 is when you started to see a little bit of a decline. In 99, he threw for just under 4,000 yards, 19 touchdowns, 21 interceptions. In 2000, the year before he got the mega extension, 3,200 yards, 17 touchdowns, 13 picks, and he played all 16 games, and he had a 700-yard drop-off. He had made 3 Pro Bowls at that point. Nothing really stood out in his Patriots career to really kind of give him that 10-year contract. So imagine that. So you go back to then when Drew Bledsoe signs that 10-year, $106 million contract. Imagine same thing happened with Derek Carr and the Raiders at the end of his first rookie contract. And again, it's hard to compare the contracts from the 90s to the 2010s because back in the 90s, you could give your quarterback whatever the hell you wanted. Your first round pick, you give him whatever. I believe that stopped with Stafford and Bradford, like that era. Like those were the last 2 big time quarterbacks that got the big contract because then like, okay, well, we're going to have to make mandatory for you, whatever. But Derek Carr wasn't all that different from Drew Bledsoe to start off his career. Before he got the mega extension in 2017, he had one really, really good year. 3,900 yards, 28 touchdowns, 6 picks. He's 3rd in MVP voting, 6th in Offensive Player of the Year voting. He got a Pro Bowl, 3 Pro Bowls, just the same amount as Bledsoe did in 7 years. These quarterbacks are honestly pretty similar, except Derek Carr had less picks, and that's most likely because Derek Carr was never really that much of a gunslinger. But imagine giving Derek Carr a 10-year contract after so put yourself back in 2021. right before Josh McDaniels got hired by the Raiders and absolutely torched that thing. Imagine the year before they hired Josh McDaniels. Actually, this works out perfectly because Josh McDaniels came in as the first-year head coach. Belichick did, and right before Belichick got to New England, Bledsoe got the mega deal. Imagine right before Josh McDaniels got to the Raiders gave Derek Carr a 10-year contract, a 7-year contract worth $25 million a year, upwards. Doesn't that sound crazy?
Yeah.
That's the comparison. And that's how crazy it is to the fans who don't really understand what Drew Bledsoe back then was pretty much what Derek Carr is. Derek Carr is looked at by most Raiders fans and most Raiders watchers as probably one of their best quarterbacks of all time. Because all the quarterbacks they've had are kind of trash. Same respect, Drew Bledsoe when he was in New England was already one of the greatest quarterbacks they ever had. Because before that, you had Tony Eason and Steve Grogan. Yeah, no, those names aren't inspiring anybody. So, just something to think about. Drew Bledsoe, Derek Carr. Think about it. But I mean, otherwise, I think that docuseries is fantastic. I do. I wish that Belichick had opened up a little bit more, but you're never going to get anything out of Belichick. And
I think we might get more out of him once we get to the end of
the people who have had early access to it, like the media people at the Globe and other people like that who have already watched the whole thing, they say, yeah, Belichick's not opening up about much. Like, we don't even get the answer to the Malcolm Butler thing in 2017. Like, I guess there's a part in there that might be cut out that might still be there where the director or whoever asked Belichick the questions is like, oh, hey, so what happened with Malcolm Butler? And Bill said, come on, dude, we already talked about this. I'm not talking about it.
It can't be that bad. It can't be that bad, whatever it is.
Right? And I don't understand why they're not talking about it, because is it possibly because Belichick did a little nepotism and sided with his son over his player? I mean, I don't know. That there's a couple of theories on why Butler was benched, whether it was fighting with coaches or being late to a curfew. I guess Butler has a book coming out soon that could give us some answers there. But I don't know. The Dynasty, Apple TV, it's worth the free trial of Apple TV for sure. It's if you're gonna pay for it, I think it's more than worth the $10 a month if you have to pay for it. But next episode comes out, I believe, later this week. The first. All right, so we have to wait.
I believe it said March 1st is the next set of episodes.
Guess we'll have to wait a little bit, but get caught up on that because you heard it from Trent, a Colts fan, that this thing is worth watching. All right. All that in mind, are we ready for our main event? Yes,
sir.
Our big segment that we've been planning out. So, I'm sure you guys have all heard about tier lists. You know, how people like to rank different things. I've seen these with food chains. I've seen this with rock bands. I've seen it with rappers, albums, the whole 9 yards. Everything can be ranked in a tier. It's very simple. It's very organized. And Trent and I decided to take it upon ourselves to rank the quarterbacks around the NFL, especially as a team in need of quarterbacks. We can kind of see what we should be kind of looking for, what kind of talent that could be out there. And you guys all know the drill by now. Yeah, I'm sure everybody and their mother has seen a tier list at this point. And this is going to be part one of a 2-part exercise to be finished next week. That's going to be part of a bigger discussion. We might bring somebody else on to help us out with that too, but we'll see. We'll see what kind of trouble we can get ourselves in. But without further ado, Trent, are you ready to get started here?
Yes, sir.
I should probably close out my my Drew Bledsoe and Derek Carr tabs for the comparisons here, but it's okay. Here we are. I hope you guys can see this perfectly, and you can still see me and Trent over in the corner. This is our quarterback tier list. You can see at the bottom, we have all of the quarterbacks that we are going to talk about, that we are going to put in these tiers. Obviously, the top tier is Patrick Mahomes. Spoiler alert, nobody else is going to be joining him there. Obviously, after that, you have the great quarterbacks, the elites, I guess you could say. After that, the good, not greats. After that is the average, the guys that, are too good to replace, but not good enough to really get you where you really want to be. After that is the replaceable tier or needs to be replaced. You can take that however you want. And then the bottom tier, you have awful. I hate to break it to you but there's going to be a Patriot there. By the end of this show, there is going to be a Patriot in that gray tier. But
maybe 2 for all we know.
maybe 2. Who knows? Who knows? Indeed. But Trent, I'm excited to get through this. I'm excited to talk about these quarterbacks with you. Let's start off with your team. He played most of your games. Gardner Minshew. Where are we putting him?
I don't think I would go good, not great, but I would definitely go average. We've had a lot of conversations with friends of other teams who could potentially be looking at quarterbacks, and if you're looking for a bridge quarterback who is good enough to have your team competing,
keep your ears open, Patriots.
There's not going to be many guys on the kind of price tag that Gardner Minshew is going to command as good as he is. I think he is going to be a sneaky hot commodity once free agency opens up. I don't think I would love for the Colts to be able to keep him. I don't know if we're going to be able to afford to. But I love Gardner. He did a lot of great stuff for us this year.
I think I pretty much retweet whatever you say there. I think I've never been the biggest Gardner Minshew guy, but might be perfect for a team like the Patriots who just need somebody that can kind of hold down the fort until we get the next guy. But up next, he's had a rough break in Denver. Russell Wilson. It's been a tough stretch over there, dealing with Nathaniel Hackett his first year and just having a god awful offense, and the second one not being everything Sean Payton wanted him to be, although he was solid in his play anyway. He's going to be cut. He's going to be a free agent. He's still going to command starter money, I think. I'm inclined to put Russell Wilson at the top of that average tier. I think that's about as high as I can go on him. Because he just, in the past couple of years, his game doesn't tell me he's still the good, not great, or the great quarterback that he was. Ever since he left Seattle, it's been rough. And that could be just because of the coaching and the environment and just not being a good fit there. But the last couple of years have taken a hit to his stock. I mean, can you make the argument that he should be in the good, not great tier?
No, definitely not. I think average. I'm with you. Average would be the highest I could go. I even kind of lean replaceable, but average I don't have any problem with. You even saw the wheels not start to fall off, but you saw him starting to loosen up a little bit towards the end of his time in Seattle. Once he got to Denver, he was hell-bent on not using his legs as much, wanting to be more of a pocket passer, and really not playing to his strengths in that sense. Been a really rough couple of years. I think any team who has major questions about their quarterback, whether it be health or whether they're the guy, Russ would be a great option as a backup quarterback for a lot of people. I don't know if he has that contributing to a contending team as
So
a
you don't think that the
starter ahead of him.
Pittsburgh Steelers should be eyeballing Russell Wilson?
Well, I think Russ would be an improvement over anybody they have right now, but I imagine that Russ is going to still get a good little bit of money, just whether it's off of name value, what have you, things like that. I think there's a lot of teams who are going to be after him. I'm just really unsure about how much he has left in the tank.
I'm right there with you. Those 2 years in Denver have really made me question just how much there is there. Looking at this next guy, Bryce Young went first overall last year in the draft. I'm kind of inclined to make my own tier for this one and label it TBD.
Yep, me too.
To be determined, because listen, Bryce Young, there wasn't a whole lot that he could have done to really make that situation in Carolina work. There's only going to be a couple quarterbacks here that I think really apply here to the TBD tier, but Bryce Young certainly one of them. I don't think you would disagree.
No, I don't. I think people are way too hard on him. He's going to have he already has a lot of setbacks and barriers he has to jump over given his size, things like that. Frank Reich is not some quarterback guru that he has led the national media to think that he is.
Dude, we've been on that since day one, that Frank Reich wasn't very good.
Since day one. we've been on it. People in Indianapolis have known it for years, but the national media just kept telling us, "Oh, this guy's great. He was a coordinator one time and he was really good." But that team's horrible to put it bluntly. And the big comp for Bryce Young was Drew Brees coming out of Alabama, and Drew Brees didn't exactly have the greatest start to his career either. So I was a big fan of Bryce. I continue to be a big fan of his potential. I think he's got a good head on his shoulders. I'm excited to see what he does in the future, but like you said, I don't think it's fair to put him in any tier right now.
No. Just as much as we want to buy the hype and believe in him, we also cannot be harsh on him either. So Desmond Ritter, he's between replaceable and awful for me. I'm not a fan. I've never been a fan of his at all. Didn't like him coming out of college. I lean awful, but if you can make a case for replaceable, I'll put him there.
I'm a big Desmond Ritter fan.
Okay, here we go.
As you remember, future All-Pro Desmond Ritter was definitely a meme in our fantasy league.
Oh God, you said that? I didn't even realize you said that.
Oh, I said it all the time. I was kidding. Even when I was high on Desmond Ritter, I was kidding. But future All-Pro Desmond Ritter was a meme for sure. I would go awful.
Okay.
He's not good. I hate to say it because one of my best friends went to Cincinnati. I watched him that whole run when they went to the college football playoff. I thought he had a lot of intangibles that could lead to him being a really solid starter in the league. No, no. He's that DoorDash commercial is going to live forever for the worst reasons for him. He's not great.
Jake Browning. I mean, he's a backup. He's okay. He had a couple of good games. He had a couple of bad games. Replaceable? Is he better than Desmond Ritter by a whole tier? I don't know.
I would say replaceable. I mean, I saw more out of Browning in 3 games than I saw out of Desmond Ritter in 2 years. So I have no problem putting him there. I mean, it's crazy what a quarterback can do when you surround him with the best receiving core in the NFL, a top 10 running back, a great head coach, a solid defense.
I have a feeling we're going to have a bigger discussion about this a little bit later.
I'll save it. Well, I mean, how you feel about Jake Browning has to be connected to how you feel about the other guy, in my opinion. But I have no problem saying he's replaceable.
Sam Howell, kind of the same boat. He had a couple of good games. He had a couple of bad games. Definitely not the QB of the future there, but I'm interested to see whatever happens with him the rest of his career. Up next, we have the MVP, Lamar Jackson. He's in the great tier. He's QB2 to most people, at least QB3 to everybody, I think. No problem with putting him in the great tier. And you shake your head yes. So we're going to move right on to Justin Herbert. When this tier list is categorized by the S, A, B, C, Ds of the world, I have a hard time putting Herbert in the A just because, I don't know, I have some concerns about him. But when we put it this way, I think you can call Herbert a great quarterback.
Yeah, I have no question putting him on that tier.
All right. Up next, C.J. Stroud showed a lot his rookie year. I think you got to put him in great.
I don't know
if you want to make the case for good, not great. You can go for it, unless you want to throw him in TBD.
Definitely not TBD. I don't know how many other quarterbacks I want to put in TBD other than.
There's only like 2 more that I could think of.
Yeah, spoiler alert, I wouldn't put Anthony Richardson in TBD, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. CJ, I don't have a problem putting him in great. If you feel really strongly about great, I have no problem putting him in great. I just, with it being year one, I struggle putting anybody in great after a rookie season. He was phenomenal, though, his rookie season. There's no doubt about that. And he took a team that we thought was going to be terrible. And I mean, he's made a career for guys like Nico Collins and Noah Brown, even potentially. Tank Dell was a rookie too, but Tank Dell looks like he's an absolute stud. And there's no knowing right now how much of that is coaching, how much of that is Stroud, but he looked really good. Put him in great. I have no problem. I guess I just kind of talked myself into the opposite of what I was going to say, but CJ is a very exciting player. I hate that the Colts have to play him twice a year for Lord knows how long now.
Well, hopefully you have a quarterback of your own that can get the job done.
Oh,
Aiden O'Connell up next. Replace Jimmy G probably 6 or 7 weeks into the year. Pretty good. Pretty okay. Had some good games, had some bad games. He's replaceable, I think.
yeah,
I don't think it's a TBD because we saw enough
yeah.
of them and we never had high stakes for him anyway. So I think
Yeah,
replaceable is about where I'd put him.
yeah, I'd say that. I think he definitely has potential to be a lasting low-end starter in the league. We'll see. It sounds like the Raiders are pretty interested in replacing him already, so we'll see what happens. But I like the upside that the AOC has.
Yeah, no, for sure. Kyler Murray, I think this is your first good, not great.
Yep, I agree.
A lot of dynamo, a lot of flashy, a lot of things to be interested by. He has his great moments, but some of the bad moments, some of the inability to really play up, really hurts him. So I think good, not great's a good spot for him.
Yeah, I think Kyler showed a lot this year in terms of mental toughness when the entire internet is memeing you for being lazy and you have all these rumors, oh, you're getting replaced by Caleb Williams, all this, and he just, excuse me, after tearing, it was his Achilles or an ACL? I can't
ACL.
after tearing your ACL, added on to all that stuff, you come back and you have a really, really solid season with not a lot of talent around you. I'm really high on Kyler. I think the fact that he was able to take his position on the Cardinals from this guy is definitely getting replaced to we feel really good about our quarterback position, I think that says a lot about the player that Kyler is right now.
Tyrod Taylor, one of the last backups in this league, replaceable.
Yep.
He does his job. This is probably going to be the one of the more polarizing players we have on this list. Jalen Hurts, I put him in good, not great. He's not average, but he's good, not great.
Is it weird that there's a small part of me that wants to put him in TBD? I like a very small part of me. I'm not saying we should.
I don't know. We've had enough of a sample size that we should have a judgment on him. But the judgments are really different. They are.
Well, it's really weird.
Another year of context will surely help, but I'm
Yeah,
twisting your arm to make the decision.
2 years ago he was phenomenal, good enough that the Eagles had no problem giving him a max contract, took the team to the Super Bowl, all this stuff. Sweeping changes across the coordinators on the team, and it looked like he was banged up the majority of the season, and he didn't look great. So you have one season where he looks like great tier, then the next season he looks like average tier at best. I have no problem putting him in good, not great. I think I feel from our conversations that I'm a lot higher on Jalen than
Oh,
you
you
are.
are. You are 100%.
Yeah.
And but as I've made clear on this show all year long, I am pretty good about changing my mind when presented evidence that I need to change my mind. Haha, Mac Jones, looking at you. Nick Mullins, he had one great game, but after that, it was awful. It was awful. You can't look at me and tell me it wasn't.
He definitely had a moment. That's for sure. He definitely had a moment. I wouldn't put him in awful. I think
Really?
replaceable is fine. He's a flyer backup who had a good game. We don't really have a sample size. I'd feel better about putting him in TBD than awful. I don't know if I've seen enough
Dude, Nick Mullins has been in the league for 6 years now.
Oh my God, are you kidding? Has he actually?
No, I'm not joking. It's been at least 4.
Oh, you can put him in awful then. Never mind. I don't know why I thought he got drafted like 2 years ago.
No. But some guy who's been drafted like since 2017, Easton Stick, was horrible for the Chargers in reserve in relief of Justin Herbert. Awful. Deshaun Watson. Oh, well, the worst contract in the league.
You should make another tier below awful that just says awful and in parentheses says human being, and then we'll just put Deshaun right there.
I'm not above that as a show. I'm not. I'm not above it. I'm not above it. Deshaun Watson, horrible. Horrible as a human. Boom. You guys don't you know the story on Deshaun Watson.
We don't need to get into
We're
it.
adding tiers as we go. Josh Dobbs.
I do just want to say on Deshaun, all jokes aside, I think he's replaceable. I think it's the worst contract in NFL history.
I mean, has he played any good games for the Browns?
I think he's had one. I think it was the game against San Francisco. I believe that was him. He's had one good game this year, and that's it. The rest of them, he has been mid at best.
And then he obviously got hurt.
Yeah.
Josh Dobbs, he was awful in Minnesota. He was good with Cleveland or Arizona.
Yeah, he was not great once the trade happened. No,
I'll go replaceable, but I'm this close to putting him in awful.
I wouldn't put him in awful. I think we saw enough to awful is a strong word. I think we've seen enough to keep him out of awful.
All right. Geno Smith, bit of a renaissance there in Seattle. It's been pretty good. I can't call him great, and I don't know how good I feel about super good. His play has been comparable to Russell Wilson, I think.
I think after this season, I lean low average, high replaceable.
Oh, okay. I'm confident average. I am.
I think he has a ton of weapons around him. He had a great head coach. Even with everything he's done, I think the team is heavily looking at quarterback in this draft upcoming.
As they should be.
Not that I think when I say Geno as replaceable, I think he's really good, but I also don't think that the Seahawks would have a tough time finding a better option than him, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Up next, Ryan Tannehill, confidently irreplaceable. I don't think he's awful.
He's awful. I
don't think he's awful. I think he's fine.
Awful.
I think he's fine.
He stinks with a capital stunk.
I'm not as low on him as you are. I'm not.
I've always been low on Ryan Tannehill.
I think he showed me enough in Tennessee when he had the things going for him that he can be capable of not screwing it up.
Well, I think he did as well 2 years ago, but I believe he's fallen off a cliff since then.
I haven't watched too many Titans games. I know that he's been hurt. I'll put him in the back end of replaceable for you, but I'm not confident in saying awful.
Fair enough.
Dak Prescott. He's a great regular season quarterback. He is.
Great.
He's always leading the stats. He's always leading the touchdowns. He's always getting the Cowboys to a competitive record. Does he have that itch that Lamar Jackson has, that Mahomes has, that some other guys have, that like he takes over games?
Well, I mean, absolutely he takes over games. He's had multiple games of well over 400 yards passing. My question would be, what's the difference in resume between Lamar Jackson and Dak Prescott?
Lamar's got the 2 MVPs.
He has 2 MVPs for sure. Look, I think Lamar's a better player than Dak Prescott. It's just the narrative around Dak that he hasn't done this, he hasn't done that. When in the regular season, there have not been many guys better than him. And if we're going to fault Dak a ton for being a choke in the playoffs, Lamar has that issue. We'll get to that. We'll get to that guy later. But you look at Josh Allen has had that issue. There's plenty of guys who have gotten into the playoffs and shrunk. So I think that Dak, he kind of gets that Dallas Cowboys curve when we fault him even more for having similar issues to other people. I confidently would put Dak in great.
You know what? Since you gave me Tannehill and replaceable, I'll give you Dak in great. I will.
Fair enough.
I don't feel great about that, but you make a good enough case, I think, to really be listened to like that in a serious conversation. Obviously, there's the Dallas Cowboys effect. That kind of take over a lot of that. Up next, Mac Jones, awful. Bad. He had a good rookie year. The past 2 years, absolutely nothing. Bad, rough. Can't even name a game where I looked at him like, oh well, we got something there the last 2 years. I don't have it. Don't have it. Then I'd rather spend not enough time on. I'd rather spend no time on him at all, ever again.
Some
Get
of
off my
us knew
team.
he was awful from draft night.
All right, Trent, stop rubbing it in my face here. Up next, Jimmy G, replaceable, I think.
Yeah.
Wasn't a great stint with Vegas. He was dealing with a lot of injuries. Had a lot of picks in Vegas too. Obviously, now he has the 2-game suspension. It's an awful situation. That's for damn sure. Hasn't gotten the right cards in his way in a handful of years now, and it's kind of what happens. But I think he's confidently better than the likes of Desmond Ridder, Nick Mullins, Easton Stick, and Mac Jones. I think he is. Up next, I know you're going to hate it, but Richardson and TBD, he played what, 3 games? I have to put him there.
That's fair. I mean, I saw enough from Richardson. There was enough flash there for me in those 3 games he played. I have no problem at least putting him in average. And I know I'm really high on him, but you just hear the things people say about him after these games. Like Josh Allen is saying he's got the best arm in the NFL, and you see the rushing upside. You see the cannon he has, his accuracy. You could see on a game-to-game basis how much he was improving. The reason why, and we've had this conversation over text, that I'm so high on Anthony Richardson is that he looked as good as he did at Florida. He never had a quarterbacks coach there. And anybody who's a fan of college football is learning that the head coach he had was an absolute numbskull. So he finally gets under Shane Steichen, who clearly knows how to make his quarterbacks look good and coach his quarterbacks up. And you could see there was significant improvement from game 1 to game 2 to game 3. I don't have a problem with putting him in TBD. Me personally, people who haven't been paying attention are going to be really surprised by how he's going to look next year. I think he's going to look really, really good.
Up next is Tua. I think he's either the first guy on average or the last guy on good, not great.
Average.
Okay.
Average at best.
Really? At best?
Average at best. Yeah, I don't think average at best. The guy probably wasn't going to get a second contract in Miami. Definitely not a good contract until he just happened to play with arguably the best wide receiver of his generation. Definitely one of in Tyreek Hill. And then you have Jalen Waddle too to add on to that. I think he's absolutely getting carried by a great system and great players around him. I watch Tua and nothing jumps out to me as special. And a lot of the time it feels like he's actively bringing down that offense. I love Tua. I have a Tua jersey. I was a big fan of him coming out of Alabama. I don't see it. I think if I were the Dolphins, I would try and upgrade as soon as they possibly can.
And then obviously that won't happen. They're going to give him that big deal, that 5-year, $155 million or whatever it is. He's gonna get upwards of 35 a year. I think that's going to be the market for him. I don't think he's going to get the $60 million a year that Dak's going to get, but I think he's going to get 35, 40. I'm a little bit higher on Tua than you are, but it's not confident. It's not confident at all. That's why I'm okay. I'm not going to fight for him in good, not great, because you are right. Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, that's a hell of an offense. Raheem Mostert, Mike McDaniel is a great play caller. Questionable decisions, surely, in a lot of the crunch time, gotta have it games. But yeah, we'll see how well that turns out. Jared Goff, kind of the same tier of quarterback there. I don't feel that much better about Goff than I do Tua, except Goff is on a better contract, or he's going to be on a better contract. I think they largely have a lot of the same skills and a lot of the same faults. And they're both working with some all-time talents on offense. Not all-time talents, but you know what I mean, like really, really good talents.
Yeah, I don't have a problem. I don't have a problem with putting Goff there. I think it's probably I don't know. I think replaceable seems way too.
It's harsh because we're saying a lot of those replaceable guys are like the fringe backups.
Yeah. But I also think saying good, not great seems like I don't think there's a GM in the league who would take Jared Goff over Kyler Murray right now.
Right. And I think we're on this. We're on a good path here.
Yeah.
Jordan Love, he
This is an
didn't make
interesting
a
one.
he. I wasn't a fan of his at first. He
I
made a
wasn't
fan out of
either.
me a little bit later. Again, yeah, I want to throw him in TBD, but I really want to make a call. I really want to make a call on him, and I kind of want to call it good, not great.
That's kind of where I'm leaning. Low end, good, not great. High end, average. I think it's probably fair.
Baker Mayfield.
I would put him in the same spot as Jordan Love. I would low end, good, not
Really? Because at least with
yeah.
Jordan Love and Jalen Hurts and Kyler Murray, there's a bit of an upside there. I think Baker. I don't think his upside is as high as those guys.
Oh, I don't think his upside is as high as those guys necessarily, but I also think that I think he gives off more than any of the average guy. Let me put it to you like this. I would confidently take Baker over Geno, Gardner, Russ, and Tua right now.
Mm-hmm.
Jared Goff.
I'm not as confident over Tua, but I'm with it.
I think putting him high end average, I think is also a good spot for Baker.
Yeah. Okay. Brock Purdy. We've had a lot of conversations, extended conversations on him. Just to briefly rehash it, I think good, not great's a good spot for him.
Yep. I would also say good, not great.
Yeah. There's not a whole lot to say there. Matthew Stafford. I think he's good, not great too. I do.
Yeah. I'd say good, not great.
Age is not on his side, but
no.
But with the Rams, he's constantly putting up really good numbers.
When he's healthy, he is still sharp. He is really sharp out there.
Like the only reason that you wouldn't take Stafford over Goff, Mayfield, and Tua is age.
Yeah, I would confidently take him in a vacuum if I needed to win one game. I would confidently.
That's what the Lions did. Or not the Lions, the Rams did. They took Stafford over Goff for one season, and they got that season.
Yep.
And Stafford's been pretty good when he could stay healthy since then. So I think good, not great is a perfect spot for Matt Stafford. 10 years ago, maybe he's in the great tier. Up next, Trevor Lawrence. It's been rough. It's been rough sled for Trevor.
Yeah, he definitely had a rough year. I would confidently put him good, not great.
As much as I really want to put him in great because I know how great he can be.
Yeah, it really just comes down to what I think he needs is an elite receiver. I don't think he's played with an elite receiver. Like Calvin Ridley's good, not elite. Christian Kirk is good, not elite. Evan Ingram is really good, but it's a tight end. I think I'm interested to see how he would look with a truly elite wideout, a game breaker type of guy.
Up next, Will Levis. I think as much as we were low on him coming out of the draft, I think it's TBD. He had some flashes of good stuff.
For sure.
He had some flashes of I'll give him another year. I think he's going to be a starter over there in Tennessee next year. I think they're going to give him a shot.
We'll know by the end of this next season.
Derek Carr, another one of those really bad contracts. He was okay in Vegas. He would have been in the average tier, but the Saints they've dropped him to replaceable for me, and I'm a Derek Carr guy.
Yep.
I really hope he turns it around and can just bump back to that average tier because I'm a big Derek Carr fan, but don't love it there. Kirk Cousins. I want to put him in the good, not great tier. I do. He's consistent.
I would say high end, good, not great.
High end, good, not great. All right,
you're right. High end, good, not great.
You're riding with me on the Kirk train. There's somebody that I talk to a lot who hates Kirk, and I can't put a finger on who it is. Like they would slaughter me for putting him in the same tier as Kyler Murray and Jalen Hurts, but I think Kirk does everything Brock Purdy does. He's a little older.
Yeah, I'm not crazy about Kirk. I think there's been a lot. One of the narratives I push back on a lot nowadays is if you put Kirk Cousins on insert team here, they're winning the Super Bowl. Like, I think that's ridiculous. I think he's been hyped up in that sense. Going into this postseason, I would confidently take Kirk Cousins over Brock Purdy. I wouldn't say that now, but I think he's on that tier. He's really good. And he is good for a few boneheaded throws a game. Occasionally loses his team a game, but I think he's really, really solid.
I think if Minnesota had him that full year, that NFC North might get a little more interesting, to say the least. Josh Allen confidently in that great tier.
Yep.
As much as he's been known to screw some things up, he's the only reason that the Bills are really pushing it as far as they are. He's a great quarterback. He just needs to get a lot of those stupid plays out of his repertoire. Up next is Justin Fields, probably the most polarizing player on this board, I think.
Yeah.
A lot of people have high opinions on him. A lot of people have low opinions on him. I think you put him in the average tier and then just kind of hope that he falls one way or the other whenever Chicago makes a decision on what they're going to do with him.
Yeah, low end average is what I would say.
I put him right in that mid. I put him right in the middle of it. I'd take Goff, Baker, Tua over him confidently. Russell, Geno, and Gardner. I don't know. Zach Wilson's awful, by the way. Just bad.
Yeah.
Just super, super bad.
It's really bad.
Kenny Pickett, he's at the back end of the replaceable. Because I don't think he's a bum, but he wanted to get his game isn't efficient at all. You're ready to put him in awful. You are.
He's awful. He's really bad.
I'll give him the benefit of the doubt because it's only been a year or two of his career, but yeah, he's not too far away from awful. Joe Flacco, as good as that spurt was, he's replaceable.
Yeah. I mean, replaceable if for nothing else. Age.
Zappy, he's also awful. Don't get the rose-colored glasses on pulling out those wins late in the year. Zappy's awful. Okay, he's just a more confident awful. Mac Jones,
He's high end awful. How about that?
Mac Jones, okay, the only difference between Mac Jones and Bailey Zappi is that Mac Jones put his tail between his legs and walked away whenever things got bad. Zappi just stands there and is just oblivious to things being bad, and he thinks he's still really good. I'm sorry.
Hashtag Patriot tough.
Zappy's bad. They're both bad. They're dumb and dumber.
Yeah.
They're rough. It's bad. Aaron Rodgers, coming out of 2022, he was.
Are you thinking what I'm thinking?
Horrible as a human.
Do you want to? Well, well. I don't know if I would go that far. I don't think it's fair, even after all the things he said. I don't know if it's fair to put him on the same tier as Deshaun Watson, as far as the horrible people tiers go. I'm low-key TBD. I mean, what's he going to look like at 40 some odd years old post Achilles injury?
Yeah, he can be our fluky kind of established veteran here in the TBD. Why not?
I mean, if you want to put him in average, I wouldn't have any problem with it, but I wouldn't put him in good, not great.
I would give him the benefit of the doubt. Because he had one year where he wasn't elite in Green Bay.
Mm-hmm.
And of course that was the latest year. And obviously we have no idea what he would have been with the Jets. I lean awful I lean that he would have been rough with the Jets because the Jets don't have any coaches that know what they're doing. But TBD, yeah, fine with that. Tommy DeVito, I think he's awful. I don't think he's very good. There's a reason why as soon as Tyrod was healthy, they threw him back in there.
Yeah.
He's certainly not as awful as the Patriots people, but...
Should we put him in replaceable just off vibes alone?
Yeah, okay. I'm with it.
Yep.
I'm with it. Daniel Jones, same boat.
I want to put Daniel Jones in awful just off vibes alone.
No, he's not.
No, he's not awful. I'm just kidding, but man, he's not good.
Nope. And oh my god, I didn't even mean for this to be the last guy.
I was about to say, was this by
this was not
Joe
planned.
Burrow was last?
This was not planned at all. Joe Burrow, Joe Shiesty. And here's the tiers as they go now. Listen, Trent, most people, including myself, throw him in great.
This is what I'll say about Joe Burrow.
No, I need the rant. I've been sitting here patiently for the rant.
Okay. My issue with Joe Burrow is not that he's not a really good quarterback, because I think that he is. Why do we just have no question marks as like a fan base, just as a populace of NFL fans? Nobody has any worries about Joe Burrow. You talk about Justin Herbert, Lamar Jackson, every other quarterback and great outside of maybe CJ Stroud. There are major, major question marks about them, but not Joe Burrow. Why is that? Let's look at Joe Burrow's entire football career from stepping foot on campus at Ohio State. Was not good enough to get on the field at Ohio State. He goes to LSU. He is painfully mid his first season at LSU. A pop quiz, Caleb. Do you know what round Mel Kiper had him projected to be drafted before his senior season at LSU?
Fourth round.
Trick question. He wasn't projected to be drafted
Ugh.
at all. Has one of the best seasons we've ever seen with Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson and Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Thaddeus Moss and Patrick Queen and all those guys on the defense. Ends up being the number one pick. First year, he's fine before he gets hurt.
I felt pretty good about Joe Burrow before the knee went out.
He was okay. He was okay for sure. Comes back his second year, comes back with top 10 running back, best receiving core in the NFL, great head coach, and they go on this run to the Super Bowl, which I get that Lamar, Herbert, Josh Allen, Dak, they don't have a Super Bowl. I understand. Justin Hurts does, but we have no problem talking about his flaws. But Joe Burrow can't stay healthy. In the last playoff game he played in, he was horrid, absolutely lost them that game, but he doesn't get that kind of criticism. Dak gets raked over the coals if he throws multiple picks in a game, even if he throws for 450 and 4 touchdowns. Same thing goes with Josh Allen. Same thing goes with Herbert. Same thing goes with Lamar, even though he has better weapons than every single one of them. And that's saying a lot, to have better weapons than Dak and Josh Allen. He's got better weapons than all of them, especially Lamar and Herbert. And if you even bring up the idea that Justin Herbert's a better quarterback than Joe Burrow, which he is, by the way, and I feel very confident in saying that, you're just an idiot. That's my main thing. It's not even about Joe Burrow as much. It's just that we have every reason in the world to doubt. When Justin Herbert got his contract, we were like, oh, he's not worth that money. Lamar was a whole year and a half fiasco just for him to get paid, even though he had already won an MVP. Joe Burrow can't finish a season, really, for the most part of his career, can't finish a season healthy. Oh, yeah, go pay him $65 million a year. I have no questions about that. It's just, long story long, just to wrap it up in a bow, because I know I'm rambling at this point. We do not grade him on the same curve that we grade other quarterbacks. And I think it's ridiculous. He is not some lock. Like, people talk about him and Mahomes being the next Brady and whatever, or the next Brady and Manning, that they think Burrow's going to be his guy. Dan Marino went to one Super Bowl and never went back. And I think that's what's going to happen to Joe Burrow.
Woo! You're confident in saying that with just 4 years in?
Yes.
Ugh.
Because now that he's getting paid all this money, do you know the only quarterback in NFL history to win the Super Bowl while being the biggest cap hit to his team is?
Oh, God. How far do I have to go back?
Not far.
Stafford?
Nope.
Oh. Mahomes?
Yeah.
Okay.
Patrick Mahomes is the only quarterback in NFL history to be the biggest earner salary-wise on a yearly basis on his team to win a Super Bowl. And I can't remember the exact stat off the top of my head, but if you go back to quarterbacks who were in the top 3 or 4 on their team, there's only been like 2 or 3 other guys who have ever done it either. I don't think Joe Burrow's that guy. They can't pay T. Higgins. They're going to lose a lot of guys because of how much they're paying him. And I have serious doubts on whether he's going to be able to elevate a team to that.
All that being said, great tier?
I guess. I would confidently take any of those other quarterbacks over Joe Burrow. I know that's a hot take.
Wow. Okay.
In
That
the
is spicy.
playoffs, I would take Joe Burrow over Dak, Josh Allen, and I
Probably Stroud at this point.
too early to tell on Justin Herbert, but regular season wise, those guys are so much better than Joe Burrow. To me, it's not even close.
Ooh, Trent came out firing. I love it. All right. So that's it. Those are all the QBs who have played more than 4 games or that we know are going to start for their team next year in 2024, hence Aaron Rodgers and Andy Richardson. Obviously, top tier, you got Patrick Mahomes. The great tier, you have Lamar, Herbert, Allen, Stroud, Dak, and Burrow. And the good, not great, Kyler, Hurts, Kirk Cousins, Brock Purdy, Jordan Love, Matt Stafford, Trevor Lawrence. In the average tier, Goff, Baker, Tua, Russ, Fields, Gardner Minshew, and Geno Smith. In the replaceable tier, Derek Carr, Joe Flacco, Daniel Jones, Jake Browning, Sam Howell, Aiden O'Connell, who looks like my little brother, Tyrod Taylor, Josh Dobbs, Ryan Tannehill, Jimmy G, Daniel DeVito, and Kenny Pickett. In the awful tier, Desmond Ridder, Nick Mullins, Bailey Zappi, Easton Stick, Mac Jones, who I never want to mention their name ever again, and Zach Wilson. Horrible as a human being, Deshaun Watson. In the to be determined tier, you have Bryce Young, Anthony Richardson, Will Levis, and Aaron Rodgers because F it, why not? That is your tier list. I think we did an okay job.
I feel really good about this list. This is about, if I were to do it myself, this is about how it would look.
All right, we're going to close the screen share. And with that, that is a conclusion of your February 21st, 2024 Foxboro BeatCast. Trent, thank you once again for joining. I'm excited to get to part 2 of this little segment here. We have a little bit of post-show work to do. But all that in mind, thank you for coming on. And you, the viewer, make sure you like, subscribe, comment what you think about these quarterback tiers. If you would make any changes, tell me what. Tell me what you think about the Patriots Dynasty series and how excited you are for the next couple of episodes. I know I'll be watching. But until then, we will see you all next time. Go Patriots.
Thanks for tuning in to this edition of the Foxboro BeatCast. Make sure you like and subscribe and follow us on Facebook and Instagram.